Hello everyone, in this video I'll be showing you an OP Paladin Rogue build guide in Baldur's Gate 3. Now this was a request and it's actually a very powerful class because we can sneak attack and use our divine smites at the same time if we set them as a reaction. Now this is going to give us a massive amounts of damage because we can hit critical hits and our smites and literally end combat on turn 1. So I'll be taking you through the entire build here, showing you the gear options at the end. But as for the start, I would say go with a paladin because this is going to give you heavy armor proficiencies. Now if you start with the rogue, you do get extra skill proficiencies, which is nice, but heavy armor is quite useful early on in the game when you're not going to have as much survivability. Now this class, I'll be going through the full guide if you were to do it from level 12 and respec or at a higher level, because there is a kind of a point where this build gets really strong, but even all the way through, paladin and rogue is a fantastic build. So we're going to go with the Oath of Vengeance, or you can go Oath of the Ancients. This will give you the Healing Radiance, which is a bonus action, or the Inquisitor's Might, which gives you an additional 2 radiant damage and can daze a target for 1 turn. These are both bonus actions, and we get an extra bonus action if we go with the Thief Rogue, so that can be really good. I'm going to go with the Oath of Vengeance is more of the damaging one. Oath of Ancients isn't bad, but the Oath of Vengeance is the easiest to keep from breaking our oath. Now, for the ability scores, we want to go with something like... we're going to go all in on Dexterity because strength weapons are really great, but Dexterity just works better for this build because we can go with a couple different items that's going to make it very powerful. We have to use Finesse weapons for our sneak attack, and that's Dexterity. Also, we're going to be using this medium armor here. This gives us a really high armor class. As well, it doesn't give us disadvantage on stealth checks, so that's really big for us. Now, for our ability scores, you can go with something like... if you're going with the Hag's Hair, I would do Hag's Hair Dexterity, take it 18. But if not, you can put those points into Strength or Intelligence or Wisdom. Something for just, I would say Wisdom to be able to detect other stealth users, since you're going to be one of the frontliners in stealth. So we'll go with that for the Paladin level 1. Now for our next level, we're going to take it and we get to Divine Smite, which Divine Smite is going to be one of our best options for damage. It gives a 2d8 of radiant damage on top of our attacks, and it deals an additional 1d8 for fiends and undead, so this is really high damage. So we want to set the reaction weapon damage Divine Smite. This is important because when we sneak attack, it'll allow us to use a reaction to do our smites on our sneak attacks. So for the fighting style, I'm a huge fan of defense for the +1 to armor class. It's always a really nice one to go with. Dueling is not really going to be worthwhile here since we're going to use 2 weapons, but if you use a dagger and a shield, you can get a +2 to defense. But I'm just going to go with this because +1 armor class is always really nice. We're going to have to use a single weapon here, single-handed weapon here, so just for the rogue to get benefits. Command, super useful. We're going to want to take that. As well, we can go with something like Searing Smite, Thunderous Smite, and Wrathful Smite, just for the extra options. These do require a bonus action, but we get extra bonus actions, so that makes it a little bit more worthwhile. Bless is decent for a concentration because we don't have many concentrations in this build early on, and Bless is always nice to go with. And you could even go with like Armor Class, Shield of Faith too if you wanted, but we'll go with something like this for level 2. Now this is when we're going to want to take our level 3. You could get a Hunter's Mark at the Paladin level 3, but we're going to add in the Rogue now. So we can add our ability scores. Athletics is always a nice one to prevent yourself from being shoved. Sleight of Hand. And Stealth, obviously we want to have our Stealth up as high as possible. This is going to be important because we're going to be hiding and doing stealth attacks. So definitely take that. As we get to the next levels, we're going to just get our cunning actions here, which are a great use of your bonus action because you can do hide to give yourself stealth and then critical hit again, or you can dash and get away. So these make this able for you to solo the game too, which is really nice. For our subclass, we're going to go with, there's 2 great options here. So the Thief, obviously very effective, giving us an extra bonus action. That is extremely valuable. And of course it gives resistance to fall damage. Or we can go with the Assassin, which attack rolls against a surprised creature is a critical hit, so we can do our critical hit smites on them. And Assassin's Alacrity, restore your action and bonus action at the start of combat. So if you initiate combat and you lose your action, you'll get it back. And then in combat, you have advantage against attack rolls of creatures that haven't taken a turn yet. So very useful perks. I think that the Thief Rogue with the extra bonus action just gives us a whole lot of versatility in what we can do. That could be even an extra offhand attack. Now, at level 4, this is where the build gets interesting. because we need two things. We need spell slots for our smites, and we need 2 weapon attacks. So we could go in higher levels of the paladin, but they are only a half caster. We already got heavy armor proficiency, so this is where the build becomes really powerful. We're actually going to add in the bard. Now you're going to want to hear me out on this. It's very strong this way. So the bard is going to give us some cantrips, which is, it's not really a huge deal. I like to take minor illusion just so you can group enemies together. Minor illusion and then stealth and attack them. Super great combination. And mage hand can also mess with people, or it can throw health potions or water bottles, arson oil. There's a lot of different options you can go with. And we also get healing word, bonus action heal. So if our teammate goes down, we can use this to heal them, and it scales off our charisma. We also get some pretty nice spells like Thunderwave for its pushback. Long Strider for an extra 3 meters of movement speed is really great. This helps out because we're going to be dashing and moving around quite a bit, so that's always really nice. Dissonant Whispers can be a decent spell to give us frightened on a creature as well. And Speak with Animals is also a really good one for just role-playing abilities. But even Disguise Self kind of fits the theme really well here, so we'll go with that. You can pick whatever instrument you want, and then we can take an extra sleight of hand or something like that, since we took stealth with our rogue. Now, the reason for this is we get a lot of nice bonuses. We get the Jack of all trades, which just benefits any class, adds half your proficiency bonus to ability checks we're not proficient in. Song of Rest for an extra short rest. And then we get to take another spell, so something like Thunderwave or even Tasha's Hideous Laughter for prone is pretty good. We could even go with, Tasha's Hideous Laughter. Now, there's actually some gear that makes this build quite powerful as well. For our subclass, College of Lore, it's okay. College of Swords, however, this is where the build gets really powerful, because we can use Flourish and a Slashing Flourish on our smites. So we can smite 2 people at once. Also, we can do our ranged, or Slashing Flourish range, attack an enemy, 2 enemies at once. You can attack the same enemy 4 times with a hand crossbow. College of Swords is extremely powerful and adds a lot to this build, so I recommend going with this because it's quite strong. We also get one of the best spells in the game with Hold Person. Hold enemy still, they can't move, act, or react. Attacks within 3 meters are always critical hits, so this is a really good spell. And we can cast this as a bonus action if we get the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel, which is quite nice. So we're going to go with that for our spell and our fighting style. 2 weapon fighting. When you make an attack with your offhand weapon, you can add your ability modifier to the damage of an attack. That's great. We're using 2 swords here. Now, one thing that this build doesn't get a whole lot of is feats. We can get 2 feats with this, and I'll show you how to do that. We can take like Friends, or Vicious Mockery is pretty good. I think it's funny for a cantrip. Friends is good though if you're the face of the party. I would recommend taking that. Invisibility is another good spell. So touch a creature, turn it invisible, attacks against a disadvantage, it attacks with advantage. Quite useful in this build, and I'll get into why. As for our feat, now I think that the dual wielder is best. You can use 2 weapon fighting if your weapons are light, and you gain a +1 armor class when you're holding. So this is pretty good because we can get a bit more options in terms of our dual wielding weapons, and we get a nice +1 to armor class. Ability score improvement's good too. If we want to taking the dexterity up is actually probably the better option here, because let's say you had the Hag's Hair, I would have had that at 15, and you could make this your 20. So I guess we can hypothetically speak that way. But the dual wielder is also really nice to get that extra armor class because we don't have a shield on. So at level 5 Bard, we get our level 3 spells. So there's some really good ones here. I think that taking Fear is pretty good as an illusion spell. Targets drop everything and become fearful. They have disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls. And we can cast this as a bonus action. And it's actually a really good spell because you can make them drop their weapon and pick it up. Glyph of Warding is another good one. You can drop down a glyph, and it's kind of like a mine. It'll hit enemies for damage, and you can choose the damage type. So if you want, you can take off like something like Disguise Self and then pop on Glyph of Warding. This is one of the few times where Replace Spell comes in big handy. So then at level 6 we get Counter Charm, and then we get our extra attack. So this is a bit late to get an extra attack, but that's why I said you want to respec this later on. As I said, you could go with the Paladin level 5 and then the level 3 Rogue to get your second attack. But if you're later in the game, respecing this way makes it extremely powerful. So for our spells, we can go with something like Hypnotic Pattern's pretty good. Hypnotize creatures that cannot attack you, they cannot move or act. That's a decent 2-turn spell that we can also cast as a bonus action. Plant Growth's pretty good too. Some people like Cloud of Daggers for the damage that you can do, but Hypnotic Pattern's just a pretty useful spell just to have. So we're going to go with that. And then for our final level, If we want, we can get the level 4 spells. Like, we could go and get Confusion, but we do have some other options that I think are better. I think it's best to go and grab a Feat, because we're missing out on a couple. Normally you can get like 3, maybe 4 if you're a fighter. But ability score improvement, it takes dexterity up to 20. If you had the Hag's Hair, you would have had 20 dexterity already, and then you should take the dual wielder perk. Either of these are great choices. They're both going to increase your damage output, so I typically like the dual wielder because we have 2 bonus actions. Sometimes it's just good to attack with the offhand weapon, so that is one we can go with. But an ability improvement to take dexterity to 20 is another good option. You got both there. I want to go with dual wielder just to show off what that does for this build. And now getting into the gear side of things. So we still have a 27 armor class, which is really great and very high for what we're doing here. This is a pretty powerful build with a couple pieces of gear. So we got the birthright hat. This will set our charisma up to 18. So we have a nice +4 to charisma. Cloak of protection, evasive shoes, ring of protection, all for a +1 armor class. Armor of agility adds your full dexterity modifier to your armor class. So we could have had a 28 if we have the Hag's Hair. That would have been 28 armor class. And we don't get disadvantage on stealth, and we get +2 to saving throws. I also like the Helldust gloves because that adds a nice 1d6 of fire damage to your attacks. It's quite nice, but you can't even... There's the dual wielder gloves somewhere here in my items. Dark Justiciar gauntlets are pretty good too for the increased necrotic damage. You can even benefit from like the Legacies of Master, +2 to attacks and damage rolls with weapons. They're all pretty great options. But I'm going with the Helldust gloves for the extra fire damage. Now the Crimson Mischief, this gives you when you deal an additional 1 to 4 piercing damage against targets with 50% of their health or lower. We also can go with the armor of Baal, the Ballist armor. There it is. So enemies within 2 meters become vulnerable to piercing damage unless they're resistant or immune to it. So we can double our damage with piercing attacks. This is crazy powerful. Note, your armor class does suffer a little bit. We're down to 22. That's not, or 24. That's not too bad though. But this will double our damage output on targets that aren't resistant to piercing damage, which is pretty good with the Crimson Mischief and the Blade of the First Blood. Alternative, if you go this way, we can put the Blade of the First Blood, and this gives you exploit weakness. Creatures hit with this weapon receive vulnerability to piercing damage, so we can do it anyways. But if we have the armor on, we can put this in the offhand, and this gives you True Strike Riposte. When a creature misses you with an attack, you may retaliate and gain True Strike. That's really good. So Riposte is a feat that we could, or it's a fighter maneuver that we can get, but we get it from this weapon. And this also has bound weapon on it, which is kind of nice. Crimson Mischief, 1 to 4 piercing damage. And we also make an attack. When you make an attack with advantage, the target takes an additional 7 piercing damage. We're going to be making a lot of attacks with advantage with our sneaks. So that's really good. Amulet of Greater Health will give us a 138 health, which is quite nice. You can also go with the Amulet of Baal to give bleeding on targets with maximum health points, but I think the survivability makes a lot of difference here. Now the final piece of the build is the Band of the Mystic Scoundrel. After hitting a target with a weapon attack, you can cast illusion or enchantment spells as a bonus action. So we got 2 bonus actions. We can go up and we can do a sneak attack, which is going to do 15 to 38 damage. And when we do the sneak attack, we can have Divine Smite on that sneak attack, and that'll deal a ton of damage. So 66, up with 66. So the sneak attack with the I guess you'd have to do the sneak attack and then reaction would trigger, and then you could do that. And then we could just disengage, or we have the ability with our bonus actions to cast Command. So we can upcast Command here and do like Command Grovel to knock everyone prone. They miss their next turn. Or we can do Hold Person, very huge. So Hold Person lets you basically make it so that you could critical hit them all the time. And we get nice benefits from critical hits, so this gets quite powerful too. And then also we can do even like our Hypnotic Pattern, but also Invisibility. So you can cast Invisibility as a bonus action with this. The Ring of the Mystic Scoundrel, not a lot of people talk about this, but this is a really cool synergetic way we can take advantage of it. So we can get Invisibility. If we have the Dark Urge's Cloak, you'll get invisibility on any type of kill that you get, but 10 turns of invisible is great. Has advantage on attack rolls. So we can just literally go up and do another sneak attack critical hit smite. You do have to make sure that you have your divine smite set as a reaction, so always have that prepared as a reaction, and you'll be able to deal the damage that you want to deal with this build. It's crazy powerful because we can go in, attack, and then we also have the ability to cast our concentrations and like hold person. We can also drop like a glyph of warding for like lightning or cold damage, which is pretty nice because that doesn't require concentration. You can just place it down. Level 3 spell slot. It's got a decent amount of damage. Divine Smite's really our big damage dealer, and we got a lot of damage riding on this, so 15 of 42, and that's before even hitting a critical hit. You can even do the Radiant Inquisitor's Might. You or an ally's weapon deal additional 4 radiant damage, can daze for 1 turn, so these will get even higher with that +4 radiant damage. We got a lot of damage riders on our attacks, and we also get the Bardic Inspiration, which is just super nice. Everything about this build is extremely powerful in Baldur's Gate 3, so there it is, the Rogue Paladin. Even though there's a bit of Bard, it gives us lots of spell slots. We get up to level 4 spell slots. That's a lot for smites. Quite a strong class. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.